Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Distilling Conference. I'm here with Sam Carter from Bombay Sapphire at Laverstoke Mill, and we are talking about signature serves and where to find them. Sam, hello.
Hello, David. Hello. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Lovely location that you've got there. Well lit. Love it. So, what is a signature serve? And if I'm a small distiller, you know, just started up, or I'm a couple years in, why do I need a signature serve?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for me, a signature serve is simply a drink or a cocktail or a way of actually making a drink that is exceptionally, it kind of works exceptionally well with your particular product, you know, almost like better than everybody else's, in fact. It's what stands you away from the crowd within a very busy marketplace. You know, I mean, take me within gin. Gosh, there's so many hundreds of new gins on the market every year, literally thousands, probably 8,000-10,000 gins in the world. So you need to do something for your gin to stand out from everybody else. And if everyone else is just chasing a gin and tonic with a lemon garnish, you know, what's really going to make it stand out? So I do think it's exceptionally important. And actually talking about a gin and tonic, I thought it would probably be quite prudent if I had a gin tonic in my hand whilst we're having a bit of a discussion over the next little while. So, and then I can bring out some talking points. You know, there's loads of elements to a signature serve, whether it be obviously your gin, the tonic that you use, the way that you make it, the glassware that you use, definitely, and also the garnish. Garnish is probably one of the biggest elements, I'd say. Yeah, so for me, when I'm making a gin tonic, I love it in a balloon glass. I mean, many people obviously use highballs, tumblers, balloon glasses, certainly in vogue, never a straw. Obviously, you'd lose the aroma if you use straws. And then it's definitely key to have loads of ice. The more ice, the better. And for me, one of our signature serves for the gin tonic is to have loads of ice and prepare the glass first, actually. So this is something you could train into bartenders, is rather than just bosh it with the gin, the tonic, the ice, the garnish. It's take a bit of care and passion and reinstill some of that old classic care that goes into making drinks. So yeah, for me, it's about preparing the glass. So yeah, loads of ice, chill it down. And then you want the garnish. I know we're going to talk loads about garnishes later on today, but I suppose taking the gin tonic specifically across all the spirits category, classically lemons we use, limes, grapefruits, all sorts. We love a lime with our gin because we've got lemon peel in there, so I like the fragrance of the lime. Many people cut their lime from top to bottom, whereas I like to cut it through the middle, through the equator, like that. Cut it in half and then in half again, so 1/8 of a lime. And when you squeeze it, you're actually going to get more juice out of that lime wedge when you squeeze it. So I'll have sort of melted the outside of the ice cubes here. So I just pour off that water there. Because to be fair, there's enough water in tonic water. You don't want to add more with the extra melting ice. And then I kind of season my ice just by gently squeezing the lime over the top and pop it in. You know, then you're going to grab your gin. I love a ratio of 1 to 2. So that's 1 part gin to 2 parts tonic. Maybe, David, you like it the other way around. 2 gin to 1 tonic, I'm not sure.
No.
Depends on the time of day,
I want to
right?
have more than one, probably, so I don't want to get too intense too quickly.
And then you want to create a little technique that captures the imagination of the people, something that makes people go, wow, and it's got to be genuine. It can't be a gimmick. And what I personally love to do is pour the tonic down the bar spoon. So I've got classic Fever Tree Indian tonic water, well chilled, freshly opened as well. And instead of gushing my tonic in there, and with the fear of kind of losing all of the carbonation, I have this technique of pouring it down the bar spoon. And that's our kind of signature serve, if you like. So I'll hold the bottle around the neck, put the bar spoon on top, thumb on top of that. And this is something that, you know, a person could quite easily do at home if they want to show off to their mates. You want to get a bit of a trend going. And then literally you want to go from up to 90 degrees as quickly as you can. So you literally pour down the bar spoon, and you can actually stir this at the same time as pouring. Maybe you can stir, look at the camera, and pour at the same time. Oh, multitasking. Oh, here we go. And like I said before, love a ratio of 1 to 2. So that's 1 part gin, 2 parts tonic. So they're 200 ml bottles, so 100 ml tonic, and then just a very slight little stir at the end, kind of a fold, a bit like folding meringues, if you like, if you're making it, or egg whites from meringue. And that for me would be our perfect serve gin and tonic. So it doesn't just have to be kind of the ratio, the glass, lots of ice, the garnish, the lime, but also it can be the methodology of how you make your gin tonic.
Almost a touch of theatre.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's surely what's why people go to a bar, is to have that theatre. They want to feel a little bit special. Whether you agree with that methodology or not, it creates a bit of a talking point, you know?
I think it's a very good illustration of doing the pour down the bar spoon, because most of the times when I've tried it, I've not done it very well, and it's made it flatter. Yeah.
Oh, right. It spills everywhere.
Yeah. When you do it right, though, it really just keep that effervescence in, which is lovely.
Yeah, you can either just do it over the back of the bar spoon, or carefully down the side of the glass. The key thing is not to just gush it in, you know,
get all the froth.
When you see all those bubbles, yeah, that's when you're losing it. But it seems like you don't have one in your hand, David.
No.
Regardless, cheers. You probably finished yours already, I imagine.
I think the other nice sort of contemplation and a place for a signature serve is perhaps in a tasting room, or if there's a bar attached to a distillery. And I know that increasingly more distilleries are looking at, having their distillery not just as a production facility, but as a destination to come and maybe do masterclasses, or maybe just come for a drink, or part of the tasting room, and probably, to buy some bottles or some merchandise.
Yeah.
All part of the income stream. And actually something like that, even if it's not necessarily replicated in other accounts in bars and pubs and things like that, because it may or may not be so practical, if you've got it at your distillery, then at least there is that level of something a bit different, and a reason to come and visit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like if you've got a distillery shop, you're obviously selling bottles in the shop. Maybe if people love the idea, I'm not saying this is the perfect way, but if people love the idea of your bar spoon, you sell a few bar spoons, bit of profit. Like I say, it all helps your brand home.
Yeah. So I was interested in something, just to pick up on something you were talking about with the gin and tonic, which was, you said that there's lemon in the gin, and so that's why you use lime. And I'm quite interested in that kind of this idea of, do you look for something that's in a gin, particularly like in a botanical, or a flavor note that might be in a rum, and look to kind of match that, or do you look at trying to contrast that? What's your take on that? You
can certainly do both, I would say. So yeah, we have lemon peel botanical, coriander seed as another citrusy botanical within our gin. So yeah, you could enhance that with a wedge of lemons kind of squeezed in. However, sometimes you've got the bitterness in the tonic can be quite overpowering. Lemon tends to be a bit more sour than lime. I personally love lime because it's really fragrant, and it's not quite so sour. So a squeeze of that can contrast with the lemon to enhance. So yeah, it is good to look at what botanicals are in a gin when, for example, you're making gin tonic, or pairing that gin to a particular tonic as well. I love the Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic, is absolutely fantastic with the sort of Mediterranean kind of flavors within it. But it's all about experimentation, right? Yeah, you either match, but then you are going very one-dimensional. Say if you had a really lemony, citrusy gin, and you put in a lemon tonic, like a bitter lemon, and then you squeeze in a lemon wedge, funnily enough, that's going to be a very lemony drink.
Oh, funnily that.
Which is cool. Like if you like lemon, cool, tick box, that's one direction. But it can make that drink quite one-dimensional. So then if you say our gin with 10 botanicals, and you take a Fever Tree kind of Mediterranean tonic, but then you add in the lime, you've got kind of 3 different elements going on, just to create a little bit more complexity.
So if I may ask, I know you've got the new Bombay Bramble out, which is a fruitier style of gin. There you go. Yeah, that's it. So I think it would be useful as a case study, if you're going to make a similar drink, but with that different flavor profile that it has, how would you, if you were making, say, a gin tonic or something, how would you change what you've just done there to apply to the Bombay Bramble?
Yeah, funny you say that, because literally I would go with the lemon tonic with the bramble. I mean, traditional tonic's brilliant, but because you've got the sort of blackberry and raspberry flavors within it, doing a lemon tonic with that is just exceptional. Nice little gentle wedge of lemon, or a peel of lemon spritz over the top is delicious. It reminds me of a time many years ago. There was a trend where people used to drink those black raspberry liqueurs from France, in the kind of the round bottles.
Orb.
Yes, orb, exactly, perfect. So they drink that and tonic. And so obviously the liqueur is quite sweet and the tonic's a bit bitter, and the two combine exceptionally well. And there's no actual sugar in Bombay Bramble, but it's got those bright, vibrant, fresh berried notes. So yeah, lemon tonic pairs really well with that.
And I can also think about that sort of ruby, purpley kind of reddy shade of the gin there, with the lemon peel, particularly if you have the lemon peel in there, that contrast of those sort of purpley red notes and then the bright yellow, I could see visually, it's quite a simple garnish actually, but visually that works. And I imagine that's a consideration as well when you're trying to come up with a signature serve, is it's got to be appealing to the eye, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to capture the eye. Yeah, ideally, you want to look at how it looks, what glass it's going to go into, the garnish that's going to go in there. How accessible is that garnish, I think, is really important, because if you choose to put star fruit or mango, I mean, mango in a gin tonic is delicious, depending on the gin tonic pairing. However, buying a fresh mango is quite expensive. You've got that big stone fruit in the middle, and then you never know where it is. So you're trying to cut around it. There's often quite a lot of wastage. So I would say, unless you're a mega premium bar, you've got to avoid those kind of tricky fruits, because if you wanted to, say, put wild flowers, edible flowers as a garnish on your gin tonic, that's your signature serve. What bar is going to go out of their way and buy them just for your gin, just to sell your gin? I mean, you've got to have a really close connection, or a bit of a, or support. You as a brand have got to support those bars to buy those flowers, because why should they do it? It doesn't make sense. So when you're choosing one of these kind of garnishes, it's got to be something that's accessible. I would say something like ginger is an everyday kind of spice, but it's accessible. It's quite big. You can slice it. It gives a fantastic fragrance. Obviously, it's not going to work with every gin, but it will work with certain gins.
Lasts quite a long time and is not very expensive at all.
Exactly. You could use a mandolin to slice it. Obviously, people use lemons, limes a lot. Oxley gin uses grapefruit because it pulls out on the sort of peel in there. Gin Mare, you're going to be using that rosemary, the olives in there to enhance some of the botanicals that are already in the gin, which is a great idea. I mean, we can't forget cucumber, right?
Well, yeah, cucumber, yeah, it's a big one. Strawberries,
it's kind of like the elephant in the room. Well, not this room anyway, because it's obviously a blue room, but
not in there. Yeah.
But cucumber, I mean, that is the genius. I think the cucumber is the pinnacle of garnishes that every brand aspires to. I'm sure Martin Miller's are absolutely kicking themselves because I don't know if you know, I'm sure you know, David, but they came out like a year before Hendrick's and have cucumber in their gin, but they never really talked about it. They focused around the water, not the sort of botanical ingredients. Obviously, Hendrick's, delicious gin, came out, sliced cucumber, peel of cucumber, and it completely revolutionized the gin category, really, and over the last 20 years, to the fact that even though Bombay Sapphire has been known for gin, tonic, and lime, I hear loads of stories. People go into a bar and ask for a gin tonic with Bombay Sapphire, which is cool, but they'll ask for cucumber.
Oh, interesting, because they like that little freshness. Well, I mean, it's fascinating about the cucumber in particular, because I've seen references to using of cucumber as a gin and tonic garnish going back to at least the 70s. I think there's some like adverts from Seagram's gin in America, and it would be like a long peel, so right down the cucumber, so people have thought about it before, but it was how was it executed?
Yeah.
And it gives you that look of, if there's a couple of bits of cucumber in the glass, you think, what's that? I want some of that, or the strawberries or something.
Yeah.
It's
like Bloom are quite well known for their gin and strawberries in their gin, aren't they, as a summer serve, which is brilliant.
I think that's a good signature serve. If people can look at it and see it and go, oh, what's that? I fancy trying that just because I like the look of it. Yeah. That's a winner.
And gin typically being quite a British kind of known spirit, and cucumber as well, cucumber sandwiches, Pim's lemonade with cucumber in it. It's a very clever thing. And what I love is they're not overly expensive. You get a lot of serves out of it. So a bar is really happy to buy a cucumber, knowing that, yeah, they'll get through it before it's gone all sort of squishy and soft, right? Whereas some garnishes aren't going to last long. Like we said, wildflowers or certain herbs won't last long. I quite like rosemary. Rosemary is a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's hardy. It's going to last in your bar, because bars can be a little bit warm. They can make them go over. So mint doesn't last very long. But then you might use mint in a Bacardi Mojito. So then on your menu, you might use mint in a gin tonic. Mint and ginger actually is a great combo for a gin tonic, certainly.
What do you think of?
Quite like cinnamon sticks, depending on the gin. I mean, it's expensive because it's, stick, and you can't, obviously you're never going to reuse it. Once it's gone in a drink for a guest, don't bloom in, wash it and put it in another one. That is a no-no. But I mean, you can add that cost, say it's 20-30p for a cinnamon stick, add that to the cost of the product that you're making. Star anise is a great one. I'm sure I have someone around here. I mean, there's a whole tub of star anise. They look absolutely fantastic. I mean, that with an orange slice in your gin tonic looks stunning. And I'm not sure how much this tub costs, but you get a fair amount in there. And they release their flavor exceptionally well. Of course, some things don't release their flavor very well, but some things do. Slightly off the wall here, and it all depends on what combo you're trying to go gin tonic, but peppers. I think actually, David, when I first met you, we've known each other for what, 10, 11 years, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
At the Blue Rooms. One of the first gin tonics I made you, I'm sure, was a gin tonic with pepper in it. Now, I don't mean ground black pepper, because you could do that with strawberries, but it was, red, green, yellow peppers that you'd, I don't know, make a spaghetti bolognese with.
Yeah, like bell peppers. I believe it was coming up to the Olympics.
Oh, that's it.
The London Olympics. Yeah.
It was exactly that. And we did the rings, like the Aldi rings or the Olympic rings, and we did the circles, and they went in and drink. Now, that works because even though the outside of a pepper is quite hard and it won't release any flavor, the inside is soft. And so it releases those lovely juices of that sweet red pepper note and the other yellow pepper and stuff. So, yeah, that was quite, and it looks engaging.
Yeah. Oh, it looks fantastic, but it does provide the flavour as well.
It tastes nice.
Exactly. So, I mean, let's say I'd come up with my great serve, and we'll come on to how you do find these serves. But should I be very upset if people aren't putting peppers in their gin? If that's how I say this is how it should be, should I be no? You should be putting peppers in the gin, or should I be a bit more ambivalent, a bit more gracious?
I don't think so, no, because if a consumer's gone out and bought your product anyway, they've already brought into it, so they're going to get, if they get experimental and start making it in kind of other ways, then that means that they've got a deeper connection with your product. So rather than just following what you've suggested, they've gone, yeah, okay, I've tried that, that's cool, but actually I'm going to try it in a different way. So we're here to kind of guide people. But then if they take inspiration from that product, then they can take it in different ways. And I suppose that's where it's quite important to write the botanicals that are in your gin on the side of the bottle, so then people can take inspiration from that when they're coming up with a drink serve. But I wouldn't get too precious with it.
No, I totally agree. I'm glad that you said that. So, okay.
Life's too short to get grumpy.
Very true. So, I mean, like if Laverstoke Mill, Bombay Sapphire, they're very lucky because they've got you working for them, and other people have a natural sense of taste and bartending, or they might have been a bartender beforehand, or they might know someone. But what if you don't? Is it something that as a distiller or a brand owner or a distillery owner, you need to come up with yourself? If you don't think you've got the skill set to do it, how else would you go about it?
Yeah, no, very good question. I mean, drinks are such a complex topic, and they are genuinely very easy to mess up. Generally, there is skill needed to create an award-winning drink, and this only really comes with time and length of kind of bar experience, essentially. Perhaps a brand owner or a distiller, or maybe you're a marketeer, you've got your own skills in a particular way. You're the subject matter kind of expert within that field. So it is good to kind of reach out and collaborate with other people, other drink specialists. I suppose there's two different routes you could go. You could go to an agency who specialize, and this is quite often ex-bartenders who've been to university, they've been bartenders, got loads of experience. Then they decide, hey, I'm going to start an agency and I'll do this for people. So that's a great one. Like Stranger and Stranger, Nick Strangeway, great agency, drinks agency to reach out to. Or you go to the kind of top celebrity bartender route, so that a bartender that's really well known across the world, that you then invite in, you collaborate with them, and you get your master distiller and this bartender together, you do a tasting, you understand what are all the flavors within the gin, what can you take inspiration from, think how do you want this product to be served, and then come up with your perfect serve, essentially, that's going to work on, well, I suppose it depends if your gin is a global gin. If you're in one country, you want to generally use accessible ingredients within that country that aren't too expensive. Unless your brand, I guess, is pitching at a high level bar, then that's not so much of a problem there at all. But the added benefit naturally is that you're going to automatically have that cachet and authenticity of linking the PR with this celebrity bartender, right? Who's well respected for the industry, because other bartenders will see them up on a pedestal, they'll respect them, and they'll be like, oh, well, if that guy's saying that, or if that lady is saying that, then I'm really happy to do the same.
Yeah. So that works on if you've got a big brand, but if you're down much smaller, rather than like which country are you in, you're like, which counties in the UK am I in? Nothing north of Birmingham, that kind of thing, or nothing south of Birmingham, perhaps. If you're more local, then I guess you can take a similar-ish approach, but maybe if you've got some accounts, if you are speaking to people, generally I find the people that are enthusiastic, the people that are really interested in the gin, they tend to make themselves known. And then you get into conversations with people and they might even be like, oh, actually, this is something that I was working on. And you can kind of foster that. And so in some ways, it doesn't necessarily need to be the bartender. It can be someone right down that's just sort of starting off, but they're enthusiastic. And I think if you've got a sense of flavor, if you enjoy cooking and things like that, that can be something that can help. And there are certain books and things that can give you some guidance, isn't there? There's certain like flavor companion things.
Didn't you write a book on gin tonics?
I did. I wasn't actually, for once, I wasn't plugging myself. But there's like flavor thesauruses, and there's a book, I think it's called Good Together or something like that, which is like, you look at these flavors work well with this, so that can give you some inspiration. So I think there's a couple of different routes.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're in the counties and if you're in a little village in the county and you're making a delicious gin, and you probably have a very good relationship with your local pub, and they might dabble in a bit of cocktails or a bit of mixed drinks, then yeah, head down there, give them a free bottle of gin and spend an afternoon working through what you feel is the best kind of perfect serve for your product. And I know we have sort of delved into gin a little bit today because naturally we both have a connection with gin, but it could be any spirit. But I suppose it's a case of not following the crowd, looking about what's different, what's not going to be too crazy, too expensive to replicate, because you want replication for economy of scale, most definitely, when it comes to the garnish. And glassware, I mean, glassware is a huge topic, I suppose.
Well, yeah, that's true.
If you are a small brand, you can't necessarily afford to get tons and tons of glassware and flood the market with that. You know, look at sort of the cider industry. You know, Gamers, Magners, they're able, because they're well-established brands over a long period of time, and they rely on the volume. Obviously, one bottle goes into one glass, whereas a spirit, you've obviously got 14 or 28 serves per bottle.
Yeah.
They want their brand out.
Yeah, I was good. Just jumping back to the kind of the development thing. I guess if you did want to try and do it yourself, I think, what would you think about like the idea of maybe getting some sort of focus group or something like that together, of trying, maybe you just do like, if you want to do it for the gin tonic just as a starting point, and maybe look into some other things, maybe, you know, you have the gin tonic, you have little small ones, and each one's got a different garnish in, and you can kind of just take that kind of, I guess, crowdsourcing almost.
I like it.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, love it. I mean, especially now over the last year. So obviously we're filming this in early 2021, and we've come through all the 3 lockdowns, and now everybody's used to Zoom and Teams calls and stuff. So I suppose you could either send your product out to known people around the world or within the country, and whether that be bartenders or consumers that you know, and do a virtual tasting together, and taste it in different ways that you subscribe.
Zoom poll? Yeah.
Sorry?
Do a Zoom poll? You could do all those.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I love it.
And I think that is quite a nice way of engaging with your consumer, because then, like, whatever comes out at the end of it, they'll be like, oh yeah, I had something to do with that. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you can never forget the power of social media. You know, if people are following you, actually, if you're a small gym brand and people are following you, you've got 600, 1,000 followers on Instagram, which is pretty good. And you put a poll out on Instagram of like, oh, how do you enjoy yours? Or if you say, oh, this is our perfect serve. And what I love is reading through those comments, you know, to say, oh yeah, you know, guess what? I made this last weekend with my mate Daisy, whatever. And we had this, that, and the other. And it's really nice. It's really gives you confidence that you're doing the right thing, I suppose. But then someone else might be like, oh yeah, I like that, but I try it this way. And so then try it that way and see.
If you've got a rum bar or gin bar, depending on what your brand is, and you've got a good relationship with them, maybe that's something to ask as well. I think there's definitely some fun ways. You could even have a competitive element to it, whether that's a photograph kind of competitive thing on something like Instagram, you know, or something that's in person or something like that. Could be, you could use it both to develop your signature serve and also do a bit of, you know, social engagement with customers and potential customers.
I think potential customers do the work for you.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, I was putting it in a nicer way than that, but essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So I know that you are dying to talk about glassware. I know it's a bit something that you absolutely love, and there's so many considerations about glassware, from price to how breakable they are, to how easy they are to clean, easy they are to store, if people are going to nick them. I mean that's the thing. You can have a really lovely piece of glassware, but if it's going to be in such a way that people are going to think, oh, that's gone into my bag, then, you know, there's a way to address that actually. But yeah, anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Glassware is super, super important, and it's key to keep up on trend. You don't want to be jumping on something that was trendy 20 years ago necessarily, and you think it's the bee's knees sort of thing. So the glass is what gives the flavor, and we kind of talked a lot about it a little bit earlier. With, you know, for us, I'd get rid of straws, because obviously glass and straw kind of go together, because aroma is such an important part of drinking gin. You know, 90 to 95% what we taste comes from what we smell and not from what we taste. So if you're drinking with a straw, your nose is really far away from the drink, so you can't get all the lovely aroma that's within the drink. I suppose classically, maybe a gin tonic might have been in a tumbler or a highball. Then we've moved to these kind of white wine and red wine glasses, and because of the shape, kind of channels the aroma towards the nose. Like for us, you know, we've been able to put the name on the glass, got the blue stem on it, looks pretty cool. It enhances the flavor profile of it. You can look more ice in there. That's really, really key. So not every drink is going to work in every glass. But then if you're a smaller brand, maybe you've not got the investment to be able to make this glassware and flood the market with it, which is obviously exceptionally tricky. And surely we need to see that if you do make POS, this glassware, and it goes into bars, if people do steal it, you've got to see that as a compliment, because they actually want that in your home. That's pretty good. And hopefully they're loyal to then using your product in that glass that they've then got in their home.
Of course, I would say the easiest option would be make sure you're able to sell it at your distillery.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of people, like, if they can buy it, they'll buy it. Like, glasses are not always that expensive, so depending on what it is and that. But if it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, £10, something like that, most people are probably going to buy it. It's only because they really like it and there's no way to buy it that they kind of, they've had a few drinks maybe, and so I think like if you've got these things, they should be for sale.
Product that's £20-30, and then what's £10 extra for a glass or a pair of glasses? Or I tell you what has worked for us personally, if you have the ability, or as you grow your brand, if you can personalize the glasses for guests, personalization is incredible. Look at Marmite or Coca-Cola. You could get your name written on the bottle, and people love that. And so something we've done here at the Bon Safford Distillery is actually having etching on the glasses. So you can have your name or a little message written on the glass for not a lot of extra money, and you get it done whilst you wait, kind of like laser etching. And then people take that home and maybe they get a pair of them, or they buy it for a special occasion or a birthday or something like that. That's a really, really strong thing to do. Most definitely.
Yeah.
But I suppose it depends. If you're a super premium gin and you're in the £40 to £50 mark for maybe a 500ml bottle, you'll generally be in the on-trade in super premium bars. And those bars can quite often be small basement bars in a big city like London or Sydney or New York, whatever. Space is most certainly at a premium. And they don't necessarily want to have that direct connection with a brand, with the glassware, because it has sort of a connection to high volume bars. So they want a premium glass. Unless you've collabed with a super premium glassware brand like Riedel, then maybe, obviously the Savoy in London are never going to take our Bombay Sapphire glasses, naturally, but you never know. And they might well take something like this if it was in partnership with a premium glass brand like Riedel and it didn't have your brand blazoned across it. But then if the guest sits down and they look at the glass and it doesn't have a direct connection to your brand, what's the point?
There are subtle, it can be done subtly. I've seen certain things, and if it's like just in the base or something like that, I am seeing things that are far more subtle. I think there's a lot to be said for the copper glass, the balloon glass, but they are not all they're not all equal. I imagine like your one has been designed in a way because you've got that. You can, however many,
not too big,
you've bought, you've got the purchasing power. But some of them are really big, and I think from a bar point of view, that is not practical. From a home point of view, it's not practical. That's what's nice about that particular glass, just in the general glassware sense.
These are 480ml in size, and I know a lot of other glasses can be 680, 700ml, that's an entire bottle of wine. That's huge.
Yeah, fitting it in the cupboard is a problem.
And like I say, the type of bars that are going to take this type of glassware are either high volume bars or they're local pubs, because they're sort of they want that free glassware, because obviously brands give it to the bars for free. Now it's a real juxtaposition, because you give them the glassware, they make the drinks in it, they're cool, like they've got free glasses, that's awesome. However, it's those small local country pubs that have a tiny ice machine. We're lucky there, we've got a Hoshizaki, ice machine, makes lovely ice, beautiful. To be fair, I don't make that many drinks within this room. We're never 3 deep at the bar, if you know what I mean. But quite often, small pubs will have an ice machine half that size, making ice maybe that melts a bit quicker. And so there's no way they're going to fill that glass completely full. they're going to put 3 ice cubes in if you're lucky. Those 3 ice cubes are going to melt super quick and add 90 ml of water to your gin tonic within 5 minutes, because 25, 30 ml of water per ice cube. You've got to be realistic about these things, really. Because ultimately you want your perfect serve, you want your signature serve getting to the guests.
And I guess that's part of the thing with the signature serve, and going back to a very good example of something like the Hendrix with that cucumber is one of the pluses that they had. I'm not suggesting that people are going to come up with the next Hendrix signature serve. That's not what we're suggesting. But I think it is worth having, when you're developing it, trying it out in different glasses. And you might have your preference, and you might be like, yes, the balloon glass is the best one. But I think you also want it so that it does still work well in a tumbler, in a normal wine glass, maybe in a highball, in a tall glass, because there will be this versatility. And as we said before, you can't necessarily, even if you have the branded glasses or not, you can't necessarily control how things are going to be served all the time. So
yeah, I
think being aware of that, you can have your optimum, but being aware that there might be other ways of doing it, I think it's healthy, I think.
I know we've done a lot of testing in the past, responsibly, of course. But it's funny because I think things evolve and things change over time. We have certain thoughts in our head that we think, oh, if you've got, say, a highball glass, if you're hugging it, it's going to melt the ice, super quick because of the warmth in your hands. In reality, and through extensive testing, it really doesn't
make a huge difference.
And that's partly where this glass came from. Is obviously you'd hold it from the stem, so you don't melt the ice, but it doesn't really have an effect. And actually, for me at home, if I'm at home, I love a stemless wine glass. Like it's a similar shape, a bit skinnier than that, a bit taller, but without the stem, just because then you don't have the worry of knocking it over. But that's a personal thing. I love that. So yeah, it's certainly down to testing. Just give it some good thought.
So we've covered glassware and garnishes and how you come up with these serves and those sorts of things. One of the things, we talked a lot about pubs and bars, but also ideally you want people to be able to try these drinks and make them at home. In your experience, because I know that you've done a lot of work with bars, but you've also done a lot of work with home consumers, what are some of the greatest barriers for people mixing drinks at home? What are some of the things that it's worth being aware of when you're trying to come up with drinks, maybe serves for gin and tonic, and maybe also more complicated drinks, which we'll get onto in a sec, because I know you've got your real showcase piece that we're going to find out about in a minute. Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
No, of course. I mean, yes, there are a lot of barriers, most certainly, but people shouldn't worry about it too much. They should just get stuck in. I guess there's certainly, maybe there's a lack of skill, there's a lack of training, and maybe people have a lack of confidence of making drinks at home. So a resolution to that would be going online, looking on YouTube, watching people how they make drinks in their bars, on YouTube. Or actually, once bars reopen, obviously we're in lockdown right now, but when they reopen, watch bartenders fastidiously on how they make drinks, and then that will help you at home. Another barrier would be kind of understanding balance. Obviously, everyone likes different elements of balance, whether it be sweet or sour or bitter, but really understand that. And a great drink for understanding balance is the Tom Collins, because you're balancing sweetness, sourness, the alcohol effect of the gin, and then the lengthening effect of soda. So balance is key. Actually, one of my important ones is understanding less is more, because I see this so much. People think that cocktails are all about shoving loads of different things in a glass. And when you look at classic cocktails, most classic cocktails only have 2 or 3 ingredients. Look at a daiquiri. Bacardi daiquiri is just rum, lime, and sugar, and it's still here, 150, 200 years later, because it's of its simplicity. And quite often, people at home, they think they're going to go in their fridge, raid the fridge, add in berries and different sugars and honeys and citruses and all sorts of stuff, and it ends up over complicating it. Another barrier would be kind of like fine motor skills. So that whole hand-to-eye coordination. Literally, certain people just don't have the ability to move bits of equipment around the kitchen. Generally, if you're a good chef or a good cook at home, then you'll be pretty good at making drinks at home. Lack of equipment at home can also be a barrier. Some cocktail equipment can be kind of expensive with cocktail shakers, citrus presses, you know, like this. But there's loads of other equipment you could use. You know, if you don't have a bar spoon, you could stir with a chopstick. If you don't have a jigger, you could use like an egg cup holder. In fact, if you don't have a cocktail shaker, you could use all manner of things. You could use like one of those takeaway, Tupperware containers. Obviously, make sure you've cleaned it first.
Don't eat chow mein in there.
Yeah. You could do Kilner jars. I'm sure other brands are available, but you know those kind of glass jars. Here we go. One of these sort of jars. That's great for shaking a cocktail in. Jam jars are brilliant for shaking cocktails. Quite often, people go to the gym and they have those protein shakes. I've never necessarily gone down that route so far, but you know, those bottles that seal, great for making cocktails at home. Access to sort of ingredients. Obviously, people generally only have access to ingredients that they can find locally within their supermarkets. You've got the risk of spillages, mess, and all that clearing up and washing up afterwards. Quite often, people would rather go to a bar, which they definitely should do, obviously, after lockdown. But if you've got OCD at home, you want to keep your house nice and clean. That's certainly a challenge. And then one thing I've made up, you know, you get a FOMO, David. Have you ever heard of a FOMO?
Fear of missing out?
Yes. I made up one this morning, a phone, FONE. Fear of not enjoying.
Okay.
Well, you know, that's definitely a barrier making cocktails at home, right? Because people are like, well, I've got the confidence of going to a cool bar in town and having a really delicious drink, but if I try and replicate that at home, I might not like it. I might make it wrongly, so that people just don't do it because they're worried about not doing it. So yeah, there's phone, fear of not enjoying.
I'm sure it's going to be catching on with all the cool kids. I'm sure, Sam. I can see it now. One of my biggest tips for home bartending, I would say at least, is when you're doing the twists with the peel. I'm a big fan of that. I do struggle a bit trying to get it with a knife, not getting all the pith on it. I just use a vegetable peeler.
Yeah.
Does the job so nicely.
OXO Y-shaped peelers.
Yeah, anyone. Yeah. I've got one of those, but I've got one of the normal ones as well, and they work really well. And I also stir most of my drinks with a chopstick. I have bar spoons, but I prefer doing it with a chopstick.
I really just moving around. Nice. Is that because you have chicken katsu curry every night, and you're just like, oh yeah,
extra flavour. So there we go. Right. Well, let's see another great example, not a gin and tonic, but a different drink, and talk us through it and why you have this combination, this pairing together, please.
Yeah, I suppose when we opened Laverstoke Mill back in 2014, I was tasked with creating a signature serve that would be really unique to Laverstoke, essentially. And what I did, I sat down, had a taste of our gin, and realised that there's 5 main flavours going on. You've got there's 10 botanicals within the gin. But there's 5 main flavors. You've got the juniper pine, there's citrus elements from the coriander and the lemon peel. There's this dry earthiness from things like the angelica roots. And then you've got this floral, peppery, spicy notes from things like the grains of Paris and cube roots. So generally 5 things. So you can take the gin in sort of 5 ways, or you can enhance those 5 elements within a drink. And so we came up with the Laverstoke. This is where people that are watching are probably like, the what? Never heard of it. But hopefully after this, it'll be a revelation. It'll be an Aperol spritz or something like that. You never know. But for me, it's pretty easy to make, and that's key to a signature serve. It needs to be fairly easy to make. You need to be able to get hold of the ingredients fairly easily, and enhance the flavors within the base spirit. Because what's the point in disguising the base spirit? You know, all that hard work that's gone into making it in production or the botanicals doesn't make sense. So actually, again, I'm going to grab one of these balloon glasses, and I'm going to squeeze in 2 lime wedges. So cut the correct way, squeeze those 2 lime wedges in, and I'm going to use those lime wedges as the garnish. In fact, I'm also going to grab a little bit of ginger. say a little bit. I've got a fair amount. I'm not putting all of that in there, just a little bit. And you could use a mandolin for this, or the potato peeler that you talked about earlier. And just going to put a little bit of ginger in the glass. Next up, I feel, as I'm sure you do, vermouth and gin partner exceptionally well together. They share similar botanicals between gin and vermouth. You know, if it was Jamie Oliver stood up here and he was talking about lamb, he'd most definitely be talking about rosemary, you know, or mint, that they partner exceptionally well together. And gin and vermouth partner like a Martinez or a Martini or Negroni, of course. So we then add 15 ml. I quite like these mini bottles of vermouth because vermouth isn't going to last forever once it's opened. You definitely got to keep it chilled. This has been on ice, and it'll only last about a month chilled in the fridge afterwards. So if you don't get through that much, have the little bottles, chill them. And I'm going to add in 1 part of Martini Bianco. So 15 ml, essentially. Then we want a sweeter element. So we've got Saint-Germain elderflower liqueur from France, very delicious. So this is enhancing the floral notes. Obviously the lime is enhancing the citrusy notes. Then we're going to add the gin. Now if this was lunchtime, I'd probably go a single measure of gin, but now it's heading towards dinner time. I'm going to add a double. So that's 50 ml. So I guess you'd go 3-4 parts of the gin. And you'll notice, actually, I'm adding all these ingredients before the ice, because the Saint-Germain is a little bit stickier, it's a bit sweeter. If you had the ice in there, that would kind of freeze and stick onto the ice and it wouldn't mix properly. Here, I'm almost making like a pre-mix. You've got the lime infusing with the ginger, the Saint-Germain, the Bianco, and the Bombay Sapphire gin, and that is made a premix. In fact, you know, if you want to make a jug of this, if you had friends come around your house, you could just multiply this recipe up in a jug times 6 or times 10 times, and suddenly you've made a delicious cocktail. Now all I have to do to this is add ice and then the modifier, the mixer, and that's ginger ale. Because, I mean, I love a gin tonic, but I do find that a lot of people find the tonic too bitter, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off gin quite often. And ginger ale is just sensational. It's not as spicy and fiery like ginger beer. It's a bit lighter, a little fragrant. You've got that earthiness to it as well as spiciness, which pulls out again on those last 2 elements of Sapphire. So I'm going to fill this full of ice. The more ice, the better, like we said about earlier. Give that a little gentle stir. 1 more bit of ice. Can't stress that point enough. Lots of ice. You know, David, you know, on that one day in the year when it snows in England?
Oh, right, yeah.
There's only one. It never happens more than once. And the kids all run out there and they make snowmen. Yeah. And then 3-4 days later, all the snow on the ground is melted away, if you're lucky, probably within a day. The only thing that's left are those snowmen, because they're tightly compacted snow all together.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with this. More ice creates less dilution because there's more surface area of the ice. So yeah, let's put that point in there. It's most definitely worth having more ice than less. And then the final thing is finding the ginger ale within the ice that's been chilled. Found it. It's all right. So really nicely well chilled.
Generally, Sam, you just keep it in the fridge, right?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Well chilled ginger ale, again freshly opened. You want it to be really nicely carbonated. If you fancy the old bar spoon trick again that we talked about a while ago, pour down the bar spoon, and you want about 75 ml to 100 ml of ginger ale for your Laverstoke. Give that a final little stir, and if people were making this along at home whilst they're watching this, I would recommend try that drink now and then try it again after you've garnished it, because it is dramatic, genuinely dramatic, how the drink changes when you garnish it. A bit like one of my other favorite drinks is a gin cosmopolitan, the original gin Cosmo from the Savoy cocktail book, 1933. You know, originally it was gin, triple sec, lemon juice, and cranberry juice. So yeah, rather than vodka, that most people know the Cosmo. Now, try one of those before and after garnishing with the spits of orange. Completely different drink. It's remarkable, and it just goes to show you 90 to 95% what we taste comes from what we smell and not from what we taste. So I'm going to take a nice big mint sprig, and the mint here enhances the Cuba berry botanical, which is one of the 10 botanicals in Bombay Sapphire. It's got this lovely minty, fresh, fragrant note. So I just kind of spank it on the back of my hand, and this awakens the hair follicles within the mint leaf. They stand to attention and they release their aroma. So yeah, I think we mentioned earlier about ginger and mint being a great combo, and it really is. It just works. It looks delicious. It's easy to replicate, and it's tasty.
Yeah, brilliant. And the little theatre with the spanking.
Oh, I love a bit of. No, don't do that.
Let's leave it there.
But you know, like I said before, you can make a jug of this easy. The other thing is you can add your kind of little stir creativity to this, because yes, you could use Bianco in the springtime. We're obviously filming this in the spring of 2021. As you get to summertime, you could always use Martini Rosato. In the autumn, where it's kind of dry and autumnal, use the Martini Extra Dry or Nolly Prat or Martini Ambrato. And then when you get to winter, move to Martini Rosso or Rubino, one of those darker, redder vermouths. So yeah, you can adjust the vermouths with this drink, which is really cool. It works exceptionally well with food. So
yeah,
I suppose thinking about your signature serve, drinks are obviously delicious as an aperitivo, as an after dinner digestif, but also you can pair cocktails with food. And this drink can be adjusted. Say, if you made this with Rosso or Rubino, it would then work with beef or lamb or you know, one of those darker red meat type things. So that's another key consideration, is to think your signature cocktail, what can accompany it? Is it Spanish tapas? Is it crisps, nuts, olives? Is it with food? You know, that's definitely a consideration.
And could you, because you've got the Saint Germain liqueur in there, could you play around with that and maybe and adjust that? Maybe if you use like an orange liqueur instead, you'd be getting some different flavors coming through. Or
yeah, no, definitely. We've tried things like triple sec or Cointreau, that kind of thing. It does take it in quite a different direction, and there's not any orange peel botanical within Bombay Sapphire. So we didn't decide to go down that route. And not that there's any elderflower within the gin, but there are kind of floral notes from like lavender from Grains of Paradise, and orris root give this violet note. So the Saint Germain was a natural way of bringing out more florality.
Maybe the dry martini, but with a limoncello, perhaps, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's all just. I think this is the thinking, because the Bianco is sweeter, so you pour that down with the dryness, but limoncello is generally quite sweeter than the Saint Germain, so you kind of want to get that balance. But I think it's just an illustration of kind of the kind of thinking, how it can be a little tweak and it can really change what the flavor of the drink is. And I think, you know, you're not born with this mindset. It's just experience and experimentation.
Many maybe smaller craft distillers, they got into the gin world because they love experimenting. They love gin. They experimented when they made the actual product in the first place. So then you're going to experiment again when you're coming up with your signature serve. And whether that be the mixer, the garnish, the glass, the serving ritual, you know, there's loads of considerations that we've talked about today.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I want to thank Sam for giving us so much of his time and his experience, his many, many, many years of experience.
Yeah, a bit of grey hair going on there. I think it's been 25 years since I trained to be a chef, actually, originally.
Oh, it does show that flavour, that the handling on the flavour and things like that. But it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Sam. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
No worries. Cheers. Goodbye.